Hello everybody, welcome. My name is Erin Peña. I'm a professional artist living and working in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And in 2025, I was awarded a grant from the Minnesota State Arts Board to create this series of video tutorials covering the basics of the kind of geometric beadwork that I do. So last time we went over how to make a warp, which is shorthand for a warped square like this, which is beater talk for a paraboloid. I like to call them tacos sometimes, but warps is the common word. So we went over how to make these guys, and I briefly showed how they would come together to make a star like this. Basically, each of these little valleys in between the points is the center of one of these warps. So for a 5-pointed star, we have 5 warps here. And today we're going to look at a graph of this warp, and we'll bead it step by step and join it to this existing warp so that you have an idea of what that looks like. We're not going to make the entire star because I think that's a little superfluous. I mean, it's basically the same thing over and over again. So we'll just do one to go over it. Now, before we get started, I do want to briefly talk about the graphs that we're going to be using. Let me flash it up on the screen here for you. So when I'm drawing a star, what I will often do is use a graph like this, where we have it arranged in a star shape, so I can get a better idea of what the end product will be. The problem with this graph is that it doesn't show a whole warp, right? You only see the front half of each warp. And although they are identical back to front in this instance, it can still be a little confusing. So what I've also done, in addition to drawing this like full star graph, is I've drawn a graph that is just the warp, like this. Now, this is a bit of a weird graph. You can see that it's really elongated, like each individual cell is really elongated in comparison to other graphs. That's because, as I've said before, these warps cannot exist in 2 dimensions. There's too much area. They can only be 3D. So this graph is a representation of that shape in the same way that, like, you know, if you ever saw one of those orange peel globe world maps, you know, in your classroom as a kid. It's that idea, basically. We've stretched the picture in order to make it lie flat. And it's an imperfect solution, but it works well enough, and I think it should get the point across. But that being said, the reason I will use that first graph I showed you, the full star, is because it looks closer to the original. This stretched out warp image it's difficult to visualize the end product just from this, just because like each of the cells is practically twice as long as it should be. It looks weird. It just looks a little weird. So I use both in tandem with each other. But for beating the warp, this second graph here, this flattened out warp, is going to be what we'll be working from. Okay, and with that out of the way, we will get started. on beading one of these little warpy warps. Okay, grab your needle and thread. Not more than a wingspan, I'd say. You don't really need too much. And we will start with a beginning ring of 4 beads, just like if we were doing a square, and they're all E, so pick up 4E, this lovely pinky peach color. Slide it down, give yourself a little bit of a tail, however much you need to be comfortable sewing it in later. And tie a square knot. Okay, and our knot is coming out in between 2 beads. It's resting in between 2 beads there, so clockwise or counterclockwise, it doesn't matter. It's going to look exactly the same this time. Just sew through one and tug the knot inside a bead. And there you go. And that's row 1. Row 2, we're doing all E again, and it's 2 in the corner, so EE in between each of these 4 beads, and try to get them to lie triangle, herringbone style next to each other. I did count out the beads ahead of time. We'll see if I counted correctly, but I'm a nerd. I like counting. Okay, and our last E. We're stepping up, so go through that last bead of row 1 and then through the first bead, theoretically through that's the first bead of row 2. There you go. And fix these so they lie nicely. And there's row 2. Row 3, we're starting with DD in the corner. This lovely soft orange. And then E, 1E along the side. And this is the part where it's going to start making its shape, turning into that taco shape. Okay, we're in the corner, so DD. So as I said before, I like to sort of pinch it along that crease there to help it form that shape. E along the side. DD, the corner. There. And E along the side. It can be easy here to accidentally sew through too many beads or skip beads just because everything's still a little bit loose and not rigidly where it should be yet. So just pay careful attention for these first couple of rows. Okay, our last corner, DD, and our last E on the side, and we are stepping up here. Let me see, so go through that last bead of row 2 and also the first bead of row 3. Pull it tight. Okay. So that's row 3, and at this point it's really starting to grow into its warpy taco shape. So I'll probably stop reforming the crease as I work, and I'll just try and hold it steady with a bit of a pinch to help it keep more rigid as it grows. Okay, we're on to row 4, and that is CC in the corner. There we go. Followed by 2D along the side. So D, D. Okay, 2C in the corner. D, D. Yeah, did I just drop them? I totally did. 2C in the corner. D, D. Okay, last side. 2C in the corner. Get my tail out of the way. You can sew your tail in if it's getting in your way. I like to sort of pinch it. It gives me something extra to hold on to when the shape is this small. Okay, D, D, and stepping up, going through 2 beads there. Okay. Okay, that's row 4. Okay, row 5. We're starting with BB in the corner. Followed by C, D, C. Back to BB in the corner. This is a pretty simple pattern. I mostly wanted to do these 2 separate stars to give you an idea of the difference between working with symmetrical versus asymmetrical warps. Because with a symmetrical warp, you can just go on your merry. It doesn't matter which corners are pointing up and which corners are pointing down. With an asymmetric warp, that gets a little more complicated. This is our symmetric warp, so as you can see, I keep pulling this down. So just go along. C, D, C. Okay, that's row 5. Row 6, same deal. We've got AA in the corner. Followed by B, C, C, B, okay, back to the corner, A, B, C, C, B. There goes Puff. He has to stand guard at the door to make sure whoever just came into the building has good intentions. Okay, last B. We are stepping up, so we're going through B and an A there. Okay, there's row 6. Row 7, we're ready to stop increasing, so we're just going to add 1 in the corners this time. And this is our last full row. The next row is the joining row. So A, just 1A in the corner in between these two A's here from the last row, like so. A, B, C, B, A. Okay. And again, A in the corner. A, B, C, B, A. There we go. Around. Last side. Yeah. Dropped a bead. Go looking for that in a sec. Okay, A, last bead, and step up. Through 2 beads. Okay, that's row 7. Okay, so row 8 is our joining row, and since we're joining it to this warp that I've already done with its full joining row, all 4 sides, and we're going to share 2 of those sides with this guy, we only need to do 2 sides of a joining row on this guy before we zip it together. Or after we zip it together. I personally prefer to do it first, but it's the same result. So, for those 2 sides of our joining row, we've got 2A, 2B, 2A. And we're treating that corner bead like it's any other side bead. Just got an A on either side of it. Okay. So once more, A, BB, a little more tail there. Okay. AA. Okay. I am going to tie off my tail thread before we zip up, which come here, means I'm just gonna sew through a couple beads here. Theoretically, there we go. My needle through and cut it close. Okay. All right, now we're ready to zip up. So hold your two pieces together to make a point. This is one of the points of your star. And just sew your needle back and forth between the rows on either warp. Just sitting those beads together like teeth in a zipper. Should probably pull tight more often than that. Okay, and when we come to this last joining row from our second warp, we are going to go from there through the corner on our first warp, the warp we were working, and then back through that joining row bead, the second warp. Okay, and then continue on, zigzagging across. Pulling tight intermittently. Okay, through that last joining row bead, then through the corner, just to complete things, and then we're ready to tie it off with our figure 8. Go up through 3 beads, then back down through 3 again. And I usually like to do that a couple of times, but for now, there we go. Okay, and that's how you make a star out of warps. You just keep adding warps until you're ready to stop, until you have as many points as you want. And for that last warp, you won't have to add any joining row because it'll be zipping in completely with the warps on either side of it. So just bear that in mind. Okay. And in a second, probably coming out at the same time as this one, I'm gonna do another little warp star to show you a little bit of the trickiness of an asymmetric warp, just so you can get an idea of that. Okay, bye.